know what time it is. It's your boy DJ Richie Skye back with some tea, interviews, recaps, and more. And be sure to check the links in the description of this video for trips, for books, one-on-one sessions, and more. Now let's get into the tea. Who is indeed the villain and who is indeed the victim? In this situation between Brit and Kenya Moore, I want you guys to write your answers down in the chatterization down below as we explore this contentious topic that has the world of the Real Housewives of Atlanta rocked. Okay, Sky Squad, we are back in the building. Happy Monday. Okay. Yet another week, we've got to discuss the fallout between Brit and Kenya in the never-ending saga of villain and victim. Can you be both at the same time? That's also a good question. This tends to come up quite a bit on these housewives shows, wherein you kind of run into situations where someone or some people may be victims, but also may be villains all at one time. And we're going to talk about whether or not a person is both. Interesting discussion. Before we get into that, y'all, we got to talk about it. The Ponderosa, yes, y'all, it is finally happening. So I'm super excited. This is going to be a day party / brunch, meaning that you're going to be able to get food, drinks. There's going to be a DJ, and we are celebrating, okay? We are celebrating. Listen, we have all been through a lot this first half of the year, and I felt like we just needed a break, okay? We just need a break to have a good time. So on April the 27th at 1 o'clock p.m. in the afternoon, the location is here. It is on the flyer. It is also in the Eventbrite link down below. Click on the link down below to get tickets for this event. We are going to turn all the way up. This one will be in Washington, D.C., and we're going to have a good time. So come out 1 to 4 p.m. on Sunday Fun Day. That is April 27th. That is coming up in 2 weeks. We're going to do the doggone thing. And if we have a good time, we're going to do it again, okay, in a different city. So let's make this event a good one. I would love to have you guys come out and support and pack the place out so we can just do it all over again. I want y'all to bring y'all fans, y'all boots. Okay, we about to have a good old time, all right? A good time. So come and be ready to have fun at the Ponderosa 1 week before Jackie Christie Day. Okay, Jackie Christie Day is May 5th. That is the day that Basketball Wives premieres. And in honor, okay, of the great Jackie Christie, that's why we named this the Ponderosa, right? The Ponderosa, baby. We are having a Ponderosa, so I'm super excited about that. Now, let's get into the episode itself. So it says, after Kenya's event, this is episode 6 of season 16. It's called Peace Interrupted. It says, after Kenya's event, the group begins picking up the pieces. Kelly's Peace Brunch, aka her Ponderosa, erupts into chaos when Angela questions Brit about fraud accusations, and divorces take center stage as Kelly, Portia, and Drew navigate the reality of their marriages. You know, I spent so much time analyzing the Brit and Kenya and Angela of it all that I really kind of didn't. I mean, I did get into those nuances, but I guess I didn't pay attention to the fact that those 3 divorces were taking center stage in this episode. I kind of realized it individually, but then I just, as they put it in this description, collectively, like, wow, that's each of these women is going through their own separate things, and they really did do an interesting job of drilling into those things. I do have a question, and I want you guys to, and maybe I missed some scenes, but is Portia? Have we seen any scenes in Portia's house? I don't honestly feel like we have. So I do wonder if the network is just choosing to stray away from doing anything in Portia and Simon's home because of everything that he has been, he had been trying to do in terms of stopping that from happening. So that's interesting, right? I just thought, have we seen that? And I know that some of you guys have been asking those questions in the chat below as well. I also saw online where it said that Portia was going to be doing YouTube videos, I think every Tuesday and Thursday, if I'm not mistaken. So we'll have that to look forward to as she continues her recaps of the show and continues to hopefully spill some tea that we can have to digest. I, for one, love it because it gives us something to talk about. So, girl, keep spilling that tea over on your YouTube page so we can definitely keep these shenanigans going. All right. Ponderosa with Portia. Tuesdays and Thursdays, baby. Get ready for the Ponderosas with Portia. All right. Girl, listen. Review Basketball Wives. How about that? All right. Okay, so let's start with this episode. Where do we begin? All right. Brit is in the aftermath of this whole situation with Kenya. Okay, so let's talk about the villain and the villain aspect of this whole situation. I have seen a lot of the commentary online, and a lot of you guys do not see it for Brit at all. And I feel like a lot of that is because a lot of you guys feel like Kenya is the actual victim here, right? Because she is the one who is not allowed to tell her side of the story on the network. Now, from my remembrance, Kenya is supposed to be going live on April 15th. So that is tomorrow, right? I can't remember the time, I don't know if she's going live or just posting a video on her YouTube page, official Kenya Moore. So be sure to go follow her YouTube page, especially if you are a fan of Kenya Moore. I'm sure you will want to hear what she has to say, and I definitely want to hear what she has to say. But we do get to see Brit's reaction to this with her husband. She's, really kind of going through. And in this regard, I do feel like, yeah, she's a victim, right? She's a victim of what's happened, in terms of someone of her of Kenya showing those photos, right? Those explicit photos at Kenya's event. I don't know. I still it baffles my mind why Kenya would show that at her event. But whatever the case may be, it is what it is at this point, and that's just that. We've already and quite frankly, we've already gone down the rabbit hole with discussing how we all feel about this. I think now let's talk about the aftermath. So Brit is saying that she's getting calls, she's being DM'd, everybody's talking about it. One of the things that that happened in the aftermath was this, and I'm going to point this out to you guys. Shout out to our friends over at Taria. Yes, my boo, Taria from the What Else Is Going On podcast for giving us this bit of tea right here. Now, it's not that she gave it to us, but it's a reminder because I'm going to point to something else that was posted in conjunction with this. But it is Brit's note around that same time, and she posted this on her gram. It said, "It's never a good feeling being targeted or hazed by someone I thought would embrace me into a new circle that I never met. For the record, I have never once had possession of any weapons or threatened anyone ever. I have never been to jail in fight or even had as much as a speeding ticket. That's not in my character. I am hurt by the narrative that's being displayed. Wrong is wrong." Now, I could have swore I thought she said that the girls in school were trying to fight her, but her sister would come in and help her. But maybe, and listen, maybe the people never got a lick off on her. I don't know. But I'm just going through some of these things. And also, too, there was this podcast that Brit has posted quite a few clips of on her Instagram. And the clip here is she's talking about she doesn't really go to gas stations in the city that don't have security, and that she keeps her pow on her at all times. So, and you can hear it here.
Only go to the same gas stations if I'm in the city.
Yeah.
So it's like
yeah.
every time, and I keep my pistol with me always.
Okay, so there are these sort of other factors that are also playing a part in why people are confused by Brit's narrative. I think that's a good way to put it. People are confused by her narrative, so she comes across like people don't trust the narrative that she's given because there have been conflicting accounts of her, what she does, right? Does she carry it with her or not? So why mention it at the time? We don't know. She kind of described it on Watch What Happens Live as smack talk, but really, Andy, without having seen the full episode, I've only seen the clips. I don't know that he asked specifically about that. I've got to go back and watch it, but I did want to get this review out because I felt like it was important to get it out at the top of the day, and I've got some other things I've got to do today. But then she goes in the episode, she talks about how, this has affected her in terms of her clients, her business, and she was talking about whether or not or that this was affecting her insurance license. As someone who has sort of dabbled in the insurance space, definitely should have done everything I needed to do to keep my license, but I really wasn't. My life shifted in such a way that I went to work in news, and so I kind of left that behind. Knowing what I know now, should have stuck with it. But anyway, that's a whole nother story for another day. Maybe one day I will get it again. I don't know. I've gotten my real estate license, so who knows? I mean, I don't know. That's neither here nor there. And I do know that there are standards that that they would like for you to sort of maintain, right? I do know that. But I don't remember as much about what would happen in those instances as much as Angela probably does. So when she says that her insurance license, there is some level of jeopardy that she alludes to that license being in. I don't know how full-fledged I don't know how deep that went into any of that went into effect. Mostly because if you follow her on Instagram, you will see that she still posts about the Jumpstart Your Agency, I guess, her course that helps people get into the insurance business. So I don't know that it really had that much of an effect on it, or if maybe she's just selling the course now. I really don't know. So, and I point out this insurance fraud thing because that apparently was something that Kenya mentioned in her sort of tirade against Brit. So as she talks about it with her husband, this will come up again later with Angela, right? That's why I'm really honing in on this, and I want you to follow me. The next scene that we see is, Kelly comes over to visit with Brit, and she brings over, I think, an IV person, and they sort of talk about, just the way Kelly is showing up to support her. I genuinely like Kelly. I feel like Kelly genuinely felt like she needed to defend Brit. But I also kind of am still clueless as to why Kelly is sort of keeping quiet about whether or not she heard the pow pow statements or not in that time period. And maybe it's because she's no longer friends with Brit, or maybe she doesn't remember. I don't know. I would have remembered that, but that's just me. So then the next time we see all the girls, they have been invited over to Shamia's house for a Ponderosa that is really to discuss the aftermath of what happened with Kenya and Brit. Now, Brit is not there, but the scene takes place with Kelly, with Portia, with Shamia, with Drew, and with Angela, and I think it was Shamia's mom. So one of the things that I found interesting was, for whatever reason in the scene, Portia is very cagey about whether or not she would forgive Kenya. Although she does admit she feels like Kenya went straight to the hell with it, but she is kind of cagey in the moment about whether or not she would forgive her. But in the confessional, she's like, I would not forgive her. I don't know anybody that would really forgive somebody for showing those types of images at their event. But, I guess that's really, would you forgive somebody that did that? That's the question. Um, and do you feel like, who do you feel like was the villain here, and who do you feel like was the victim here? That's the question. Then we kind of get into the divorces of it all. We saw a scene early, or I don't know if it was earlier in the episode or if it happened after this moment, but we see there's a scene with Drew and Ralph where she has to leave the home because it's his weekend with the kids, and she confronts him about, I think it's pest control or something like that. I don't know. She wants him to call. He's supposed to take care of those things. He told her that this was an issue. And this turns into some very, very heinous argument. It didn't feel heinous in the moment, but Drew's reaction to it was that it was just horrifying, right? And maybe she was still just really in her feelings about just having to leave her home. Maybe that was adding to it. I really don't know. But we learned from Portia that she was hopeful that in the divorce with Simon, that they would still be able to be amicable as they are going through their divorce proceedings, because, she was still hopeful that he would be there for her daughter, right? And I guess I just don't find her expectations to be reasonable given the nature of their divorce. And I understand you might want it to be that way, but because this is playing out so publicly and because of the way that things have played out, I just don't think that that is possible. So that, I don't know. Y'all let me know. Um, I just feel like it's an unreasonable expectation given the circumstances. Shamia definitely proves that she is still a good friend. She's, hugging Portia and, giving her love in this moment. We later see Portia and Shamia out for a golf date. And the golf date really, to me, symbolized the interestingly competitive nature of their friendship. I just thought it was an interesting. Yeah, it was interesting to see. Yeah, like, I just found, because I think we know where the friendship is going in real time, or at least we think we do. Seeing them play this sort of competitive game kind of lends itself to what we kind of feel about their relationship in general. Sometimes it just feels like they're more frenemies than it does feel like they're actually friends. We learn more about Portia and her feelings about the divorce during the course of this conversation as well. All right. The next scene that we see is a scene with Brit and her mom. She's upset, she wants to take the classy route. And I'm like, it's hard to. Here's the thing with Brit, right? Brit would have done better in this instance by, if you're going to play the victim, you have got to play victim and you got to hit that home run. If you want sympathy in this moment, but a lot of people will not have sympathy because you are the person who brought up the pow pows first, and there were no consequences for that, or at least none that the audience could see, feel, hear, touch, or taste. So, as Kenya is now retaliating, though I do not agree with the way she did it, a lot of people feel like Kenya was justified for doing what she did. I don't understand that logic. I will never understand that logic, but I think it depends on whether or not you are a Kenya more like super fan or not, right? For me, I like Kenya, but I can also look at the situation objectively and say, girl, that's not the move, right? So with Brit, as she's speaking with her mom about how heinous and egregious this act was, she is correct in that. But in talking about, maintaining this situation with class, people are going to find it difficult to empathize with you talking about class because you were just mentioning pow pows. So again, if you're gonna play the victim role, you got to know how to do it, right? And I'm just being for real. I'm being for real. Like, I'm just calling a thing at this point. Like, you got to play it. You got to play it well, right? And I would argue that both Kenya and Brit are villains and victims all at once. Historically, Kenya has played a villain role. She's played a villain arc. Even in her ending, there's the villainous act of showing those photos. But a lot of people also feel like she is the victim because nothing was done after the pow pow comments were made, right? And even in today, as of today, or last we've seen, Kenya, it seems as though Kenya feels that she is indeed the victim in this situation. And it's a matter of perspective, really, to be honest with you. It's a matter of perspective. I know that a lot of fans feel a certain type of way that she's no longer on the show, so they feel like we don't know this girl, we don't like this girl. We know Kenya, we like her, we have history with her. Period. She makes great TV, right? And without someone who is making great TV, will those same viewers continue to watch? That becomes the question. I don't really have a dog in this fight, so for me, I just view myself as a spectator watching it all unfold, and I'm here to chronicle what I see and what I think may be happening. Period. Now, as the girls arrive at Kelly's Ponderosa, and again we did see a lot of Kelly, giving her take on her divorce throughout this episode. It seems like an unfortunate situation. The only person that really we're able to see sort of like, I mean, both sides to the equation. I don't think I really want to see Kelly's ex's side to the situation because it really sounds bad. We've seen Simon's side all over social media. I think the only person that we're seeing in real, or at least on the show, is Ralph, who seems very happy to give his side of the and maybe rightly so. I don't know. But as they get to the event, and I gotta say this, to me, Angela, Kelly, and Shamia are kind of, in my opinion, the saving graces of the show. They are. And it really shines in this scene at the end, where Kelly hosts an event that is supposed to be a peace Ponderosa for Brit, to rally the girls to have a discussion in the aftermath of the Kenya Moore hair spa event. Kelly does a great job of rallying the ladies to be such a new person, but it is Shamia who hits it home with what this show is supposed to be about. And it is Angela's unexpected. Angela, I just feel like she is a bit of a wild card to me because you just never know which angle or side she's going to take. But in this scene, I'm going to tell you, Angela made a lot of sense. Earlier, also, too, Angela confronted Portia about that Charles Oakley remark. And as Portia detailed for us in her YouTube video, Portia said that was a joke. She apologized to Angela and said, maybe we don't know each other that well, and I was really just joking with you. But still, at the same time, somebody is going to take offense when you claim that you know something about their husband and they don't know you. So that probably ain't the move if you're trying to really get to know somebody. Like, why joke about it if you don't know nothing about it? And so I just feel like that's a human response in that situation. Meanwhile, as the girls arrive and Brit arrives, what we see is, I kept trying to figure out why Kelly was eating out of that plastic thing of like out of the plastic container with the chicken in it, because I'm like, girl, ain't you serving food at your thing? Why are you eating out this plastic thing? Anyway, that was just me. Anyway, really, when Brit arrives, they let her know, we talked to Kenya already. We want to know what you think. And so Brit is incensed. And this is where I talk about, if you're going to play the victim role, you cannot unmask yourself. And in this moment, Brit unmasked herself as a villain. Okay? And what do I mean by that? As the girls are saying, we had a conversation with Kenya. She's like, oh, you guys wanted to hear her side? Well, why? Why is that? And it's like, yes, what Kenya did was really bad. But these, specifically Shamia and Drew, they know Kenya. They know her. And irrespective of the fact that she did something bad, because they know and have friendships with her, why would they not have a discussion with her about what she did, especially if they did not agree with them? Same way that Cynthia had a conversation with Kenya, which I personally felt like it was the right thing for Cynthia to do. Have the conversation with her, say it to her face, because that's what friends do. That's what real friends do. You're going to always have your friends that ride or die for you no matter what you do, right? But you also need those friends that can tell you honestly, like, hey, I think you're making a mistake right now. Like, let's talk about it. Let's walk through this. Let's think about the outcomes of this. So I don't think it's too far beyond the realm of possibility or reason that they would have a conversation with her. So as Angela then goes into like, well, girl, like, tell me more about this insurance thing. Are you losing your license? Like, how and what is the cause, right? Because Angela works in the financial services space, so she has a better understanding of these licenses and what could cause one to lose one. And as Angela is questioning her, rightly so, Brit at that moment gets upset and snaps at her. Like, I mean, and it basically is going off like, read the MF in room. And it's like, here is what we talk about the victim versus villain of it all. Because people are not going to appreciate you trying to play two roles, right? So, but in reality, you can be both. In reality, you can be both. I firmly believe that. I firmly believe that. You may be a victim, that something may have happened to you, but you may also be a villain. Oftentimes, when you look at fairy tales or when you look at, stories, or you look at things that have happened to a person over time, Wicked may be a good example of this. But people who are perceived as a villain are usually a victim of something, have been a victim of something. For instance, Brit to me seems like the type of person who is now living on defense with women in general. I could be wrong, I could be mistaken, but I'm basing that on the fact that she has said that oftentimes she has found it harder to have these types of relationships with women because there's always been this thing that they've had against her. So that is clearly a result of something she's experienced in her past that is informing how she maneuvers and moves throughout the world or within this group of women. She's on guard. She's on defense. She said it. You've seen her say it to her husband, to Kelly, to Angela. You've heard her mention it. So now, anytime something happens, she's on the ultra defense. She is now offensive, right? She's going on the offense with Angela, who is really asking her a legitimate question, and Angela's not backing down, which I appreciate in this moment because I felt like it needed to be asked. So if you want to portray the villain, right? I mean, the victim, you've got to then act like one, right? What do I mean by that? I don't mean woe is me. I mean, you've got to also understand or try to understand the other women's position. I get that this did happen to you. But as Angela says, girl, you throw rocks and hide your hands. Like, you had a part to play in initiating some of this. So you got to also own up to that. So they get into it. They're sitting right beside each other. At some point, either before or after Angela moved, I think it was after she moved that, Kelly asked him, rightly so, Kelly said, can you switch seats? And Brit tells Angela to twirl out using a Kenya Moore reference. And, she basically goes in about, well, this is why Kenya's not here right now. And it's like, I mean, good, bad, or indifferent. Something that she clearly didn't care how this would play out on camera. And she clearly thought that she was in the right. I have to respect somebody that thinks they're in the right, even if they're somewhat wrong, right? And I don't want to say somewhat wrong about what she's saying, but in terms of the tone and pitch, the tenor, and the way she's coming across, that's what I mean. She's going to be perceived as wrong, especially by the fan base who knows Kenya better. Now, does she need to care about that? Absolutely not. But it's a hill that you got to be willing to die on, and maybe that's where she is. But Drew, interestingly enough, seems to have Kenya's back, especially when she's like, oh, that's some wild stuff that you're saying. You're referencing Kenya Moore and she's not even here, right? Like, because, Kelly kind of joked about Kenya not being there as well. And I get it at that moment because I felt like Kelly was really firmly on Brit's side. And then Brit, Drew does tell her, like, listen, I don't want anything bad to happen to you or to your business. And I understand your feelings. They're valid. But you guys both did something wrong. And I would love for you both to have a conversation about it. That doesn't go anywhere because I think Brit is now getting riled up at Drew. And it's really Shamia that has to provide the voice of reason for this group. And outside of Angela, who it wasn't taken well by. But I think when Shamia says it and the tone, pitch, and tenor with which Shamia was speaking was kind of almost pastoral in her demeanor, right? In terms of rallying the girls together, like questioning what is really happening. Even as she questions it, Brit is more like, well, it doesn't happen immediately. And Angela's like, girl, that's what I said. And Brit's like, what you say? And she's like, that's what I said. I said what I said. I said what I said. And you heard me, right? But Shamia does provide the calming balm over it. Like, like she's like you know what I'm saying? She's like a peace, and she kind of even pulls the girls together to do the electric slide at the end. And again, I personally feel like, Shamia and Angela kind of get the MVP of this episode because I just felt like Angela's question was actually valid. Angela also was a calming force for Shamia earlier when when her and Drew went to go listen to her song at the studio. She apologized for the fact that Portia seemed to be like really not feeling her or not really being supportive over her song, which Shamia discusses really, really hurt her feelings. So I just feel like the episodes do really well when you have Angela and Shamia at the forefront, because I just find them to be fascinating additions, and they are interestingly able to move the story forward in very natural ways that don't feel like they're trying. But that's just me. There's no antics with either one of them much. I mean, they both just have quirky personalities, and I don't feel like they have to do a lot of work to make TV magic happen. That's just my thought. So let me know what you guys think. Were you missing Kenya in this episode? How do you feel about her not being here? Do you feel like both Kenya and Brit are victims and villains at the same time? My argument is that you can be both. And the reality is I feel like people can be both in general. That is the interesting and complex nature of people in general, because, and I often say this, especially with breakups, I think you will see this a lot with breakups. Usually someone is the hero in the story and someone is the villain in the story. And it just depends on which side of the breakup you're on, right? So anyway, complex, yes, I know. Did we solve much? No, we did not. Hopefully, we'll get some answers from Kenya Moore on tomorrow, April 15th, and maybe from Portia in her next YouTube video. All right. With that being said, like I said before, please, y'all hit the Ponderosa. Okay. The Ponderosa tickets are available in the description of this video or either in the first comment of this video. Make sure you guys get your tickets. Let's get this thing popping so we can do it all over again. All right. So, come out and celebrate. You know, we have been doing this for a very long time. Life has been lifing these past couple of months. And I don't know about y'all, but I would love to have a good old fashioned Ponderosa, a party, especially for the people who I'm not able to travel with and who are not able to travel at this point in time. This is a good way for us to just get together, woosah, have some drinks, have some good food, listen to some great music, and have a good time together. With that being said, I will catch you in the next